My name is Leon, and this is my story. I was born in the southern part of Africa, a young man now in my late teens. My life began in the shadow of a castle, where my mother worked as a kitchen lady for the great King Solomon. He was a strong man in his early 40s, with wealth so abundant it seemed endless. The king had 2 wives, both beautiful in their own way. There was Bella, humble and sweet, who had 2 lovely daughters. And then there was Lethabo, who had a son, a boy known for being quite boastful. We all went to the same school. My mother's position in the king's service granted me that privilege, but privilege often comes with a price. The other kids at school, they could be cruel. They made fun of me, calling me names I'd rather not repeat. The one that stuck, the one they whispered behind their hands, was bastard, because I never knew my father. It was a wound they poked at relentlessly. And it wasn't just me. They targeted my mother too. People would say she was a witch. They'd stare at a face, which was burnt on one side, a permanent mark from a long-ago accident. She walked with a cane, even though she was only in her late 30s, her body carrying burdens older than her years. We lived in a small cottage behind the castle. It wasn't much, just a few rooms, but it was home. It was our sanctuary. In that small cottage, my mother taught me the most important lessons of my life. She taught me to be grateful for everything we had, no matter how little it seemed to others. Every evening, she'd have me kneel beside her to pray. She would say, "Liam, remember this? Whoever kneels before God can stand before anyone." Those words became my shield. They filled me with a quiet confidence that the taunts and bullying at school could never truly pierce. I never took their cruelty to heart. I was my mother's only son, and her strength became mine. School might have been a social battleground, but academically, it was my kingdom. I was at the top of my class every single time. I studied tirelessly, poring over books until the words blurred. My passion was law. I believed deeply in the concept of justice, in fairness, and I dreamed of one day being as noble and respected as King Solomon himself. For a time, the king's children and I were inseparable. We grew up playing together, our laughter echoing through the castle gardens. We were friends, and although we loved each other like family, but that all changed the day the king made a monumental announcement. He declared that he would soon be choosing a successor to the throne. Almost overnight, the air shifted. The king's children, my childhood friends, grew arrogant. The competition for the crown poisoned our bond. Suddenly, they saw me not as a friend, but as someone from a lower world, too poor to be in their company. They pushed me away, and I found myself alone. So I retreated into my own world. My days became a simple, focused routine, praying, just as my mother taught me, and studying. The library became my second home. It was a quiet haven where I could lose myself in books and dreams of a just future. I made a special arrangement with Zitha, the kind librarian. She agreed to open a library just for me on Saturdays, giving me the entire space to myself. It was a gift of solitude I cherished. One particular Saturday, I was deep in my practice. I was studying a difficult legal text and reciting a speech I had written, my voice filling the empty, silent hall. I was so engrossed in my words, pacing between the tall shelves, that I didn't notice I wasn't alone. Seated in a shadowed corner, almost hidden from view, was the king himself. He was dressed in common clothes, a simple disguise to move among his people without drawing attention. I stopped mid-sentence, my heart leaping into my throat, as he stood and walked towards me. A slow smile spread across his face. He told me that watching me, listening to me speak, reminded him of his late father. He said I had the same fire, the same look in my eye. He even mentioned that I spoke like him and looked strikingly similar. I laughed, a nervous, flattered sound. "Thank you, Your Majesty," I said, bowing my head. "That is a great compliment." He then asked me for my name. "I am Leon, son of Dora," I told him. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. He said, "Dora? I always thought you were her nephew." "I was told your parents had passed away." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My mind raced. Her nephew, my parents died. But my mother was Dora, and she was very much alive. A wave of confusion washed over me. I felt lost, as if the ground beneath my feet had suddenly disappeared. Who was I? What did he mean? My mother had always been my entire world, the only parent I'd ever known. Now, the king's words had planted a seed of doubt, a question that echoed in the silence of the library. I mumbled that I'd like to be excused, needing to escape the sudden storm in my head. The king's revelation had shattered the simple reality I had always known. The story I had been told about my life suddenly felt thin, like a page about to be torn from a book. My quest for justice had just become intensely personal. I had to find the truth, not just for others, but for myself. My journey was just beginning. For more of my story, please like this video and subscribe to Stories by US Sonakil. Thank you for listening.